Peace and blessings, family. The whole time I was talking, I had my mic muted. I apologize. And let me start all over again. First and foremost, I rise to give praise to Almighty God Allah and giving honor to our holy prophet, Noble Drew Ali. Giving honor to the forerunner of our prophet, Noble Drew Ali, Marcus Mosiah God, L. I want to give honor to our theocratic government of Moorish America. I want to give honor to all true and divine prophets of the Almighty God of the universe. To name a few of them, Yehoshua. Most people know him as Jesus. Muhammad, Buddha, Confucius, Joan, etc. I want to give honor to humanity. I want to give honor to anyone who strives to uplift all humanity, especially in these last days and time. We got so much that's going on today. So I give honor to anyone who take the time, to uplift all humanity, to share a few positive words, to share an uplifting spirit, to educate our people on some level. Because that's what it's about. It's about each one reach one and teach one. And I have come to this point in my life where I know this is what I was made to do. I was born to do. I know who made me, the great God of the universe. So I have accepted my purpose. My heart is fixed. There's nothing else that pleases me like uplifting all humanity. You can say that I'm somewhat of an android. If that bothers some people, hey, then that's, it bothers some people. But I'm basically I'm an android because I've done all the things that I've done. I found out that all of it was not. A lot of those things, it was the great God of the universe that pulled me out. According to human knowledge, let me say it this way: according to human knowledge, I don't even supposed to be here speaking to you right now. So I have accepted my responsibility, my obligation that I have to humanity. And I'm not saying that everyone will do that, will have to do that. It's a choice that you make after you had went through self-examination. If you have gone through self-examination and realize that your life was one great big test. Everybody have not come to that conclusion yet. So I give honor to those who have. And I give honor to the angels that was put in my path, that assisted me in unfolding and becoming who I am today. I am Dr. Malik El-Bey, again for the record, divine minister in the Moorish American government, theocratic government. I'm a doctor of divinity. That's my studies. And I'm here today just to share a few words. You see on the screen, I have a little meditation here to break the ice. Because after being on the plantation for most of the day, after you come home, you want to settle in. You want to relax. You want to catch your breath. You want to come to that self-realization. You want to be at peace and one with your soul. This is the objective and the goal of each day. After going through this great human drama. So I want you to take a few deep breaths in and out. In and out so you can clear your mind. The mind is the key. Couple more deep breaths. Okay, I'm about to stop this share. You might still can hear the music in the background, but I use that as a form of guidance. At times, I strive to move uh, or vibrate uh, to a rhythm. Because after I've learned that everything that you see is only appearing so and so, as the ethers appearing so and so, they're nothing but the ethers vibrating so and this is how the physical appears. When you're teaching and training your mind to concentrate or to come or stand still, you have to learn how to go within the mind and take control of the mind. And you do that through meditation. Some people use music. Some people can just concentrate and focus their attention on the breath. There's different ways that you can actually do this. Each way is good. I do it both ways. Um, but I seem to do it more and using something or some type of uh, chakra music in the background. Because as I'm building or speaking or going within, I'm using the music or the chakra music to focus within. And I'm actually working on that chakra the one that the music may be, vibrating to or playing to. So all of this is done simultaneously. This come as a result of practice over the years. That's why I give honor and give thanks to all those angels who come before me and assisted me in unfolding. So I want to start off with, I'm going to be reading from a few texts because my topic I'm going to be dealing with cause and effects, or causes and conditions. And I want to go into post-traumatic slave syndrome. What is post-traumatic slave syndrome? And I will be coming from one of the greatest study guides on the face of the universe, and that's the Book of Fire, the exhuming of a nation, and giving honor to the author of that great record, Dr. Elihu Pleasant Bey, Dr. Akhenaten Tutankhamun Bey, um, known as the Grand Chairman of the Moorish American government. I want to also come out of another record and dealing with the post-traumatic slave syndrome. And this sister is a powerful sister uh, who wrote this book. Let me get her name. Um, Please forgive me. Yes, Joy. Her name is Joy DeGray, Dr. Joy DeGray, PhD. She wrote the Gruy. I hope that I'm pronouncing her name correctly, but her last name is spelled Degruy. And she wrote this record called Post Traumatic Slave Syndrome. And, you hear about people, you hear talk about trauma all the time, but you never hear anybody talk about post traumatic slave syndrome. You know, this is something, this trauma has affected our people, those who were labeled Negro, Black, and Colored, African American, etc., for hundreds of years. And no one ever spoke, never speaks to that. So I want to take time out to go into that record and just, draw from it, um, and basically, have a little open discussion, have a little discussion about it, and how it affects us mentally, psychologically. Because when you look at our conditions, you got to shake your head. You got to shake your head because something is actually wrong with all the religion that we have in our present day. Um, there's still problems that you see and our people go through, that that is something deeper than what meets the eye. And religion alone, the way religion has been taught alone today, have not been the answer. Religion has been misrepresented. True religion, or the root word of religion, and religio, means to bind back. The Prophet Noble Drew Ali, most of our people don't know who he is, but um, there was an angel, or we identify him as being a prophet, a savior, who was sent to us, our people, by the great God of the universe to teach us the truth about our divine creed and our nationality. And I know, a lot of us has been told nationality don't matter, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But I'll ask you the question: if it don't matter, why did they take it away? if it didn't matter. See, to you, they tell you that it didn't matter. But it means a whole lot because in order to trace yourself back, your descendant nature, or honor your ancient, your father, your ancient fathers and mothers, forefathers and mothers, you have to trace yourself back to your lineage. And she speaks about this. She breaks down the word Sankofa and what it actually means. And Sankofa, the meaning, part of the definition of Sankofa is to go back and claim your identity or your state or your status, your state of mind. And I'm speaking about that specifically because I want to point out that you are not the body nor the soul. You're a spirit and you're part of the great God of the universe. So a lot of what I'm going to be talking about is the mind. I'm going to be talking about the mind because it's not in flesh to think or bones to reason. We gave the flesh a lot of charges, but the flesh can't think. If I cut this hand off, lay it down on a table, all it's going to do is an inanimate matter. It becomes inanimate matter, and it can't even move. The only way it can be moved if it's attached to the body, hooked up with the nerves, that's hooked up with the heart, this system that's hooked up with the mind. And you, who are the awareness, tells it what to do. You can't see the real you, but you're there. And this has been the problem of our people for hundreds of years. They have not been present. They were present, but they was not aware of their presence. Somebody else was controlling their mind. And that's what 85% of our people today, they suffer as a direct result of somebody else controlling their mind or their thinking. They don't they don't think for themselves. They've been denationalized. Look up these words, which is one of the highest crime that ever took place. Denationalization. It affected us on all three levels: mentally, spiritually, and physically. Most people, when they identify with who they think they are, they basically are trying to identify themselves with the body. They're trying to find their identity with the body, the physical body. But this is an illusion. This will pass away. Like I said, it's not in flesh to think or bones to reason. This is temporary. This happened to be what we travel in. The physical help you manifest the spirit form. The spirit have to express itself through the physical. Different levels of vibrations or ethers. Just like I'm gonna give you the scenario, water. Water exists on three different levels: steam, solid, and a gas. Well, gas is the steam, the solid, and the liquid. All the same element, but different vibrations. And the ethers vibrate at different rates. And this is what causes the different state of that one element as a gas, as a liquid, and as a solid. As you change the molecules, you affect the ethers and you slow them down where it becomes a solid. You speed them up. You speed them up, the molecules up, and then the ethers vibrate on a higher level where it begins to exist on a liquid or a gastral level. So as it is with the body, the soul, and the spirit. You may not catch on to this all in one short breath this one time. I know I didn't. It took me a while. It took me a while to become awakened. This is where the work is actually done. You have to wake this up. We have been we have been the walking dead. Our eyes were open, what it say, how it said, closed, open wide shut, something like that. Open but shut. And we're talking about not these two carnal eyes, we're talking about this one right here, the pineal gland, the third eye. You see that little dent right there? After a while, working on yourself, it will start to form and you will start to see it in motion. You will begin to see it activate, and it's called awareness. You have been disguised as a person through your human experiences. And this is what you identify yourself as. But there's something else that's higher that you cannot, it's unlike you cannot see. It's unlike anything that you see that exists on a higher level that informs this clay. Think about it. I'm just preparing the ground. That's all I'm doing. I have to prepare the ground just like a farmer. In order for corn to grow and be planted, you have to cultivate the ground. You have to dig up all pull up the weeds and remove some of the rocks and things of that nature that will choke out the life of that very seed that he's trying to plant. So some thoughts or ideas or concepts that we presently have will be the very thing that keep us from comprehending who we really are. It would interfere with the process of us of becoming awakened, because we will focus our attention on what somebody told us we were, told us who we were, or told us what we were. It's called conditioning. Conditioning. And the Prophet Noble Drew Ali identified it as being mental slavery. So, with all that, let's get a little light up in here. That's a little better. With all that out the way, I want to share my screen. And first, I want to start off with the Book of Fire. We deal with the United Nations Declaration on the rights of indigenous people, because most of our people don't know that they have rights. They don't even know that they're indigenous to this land, because they've been told that they came from someplace else and they were slaves. And this is the story they've been told, and this is the story they have accepted. So as a result of that, they don't even know that they have rights. The only rights that they understand that they have is the one that were given, civil rights, through civil rights. And as a result of that, remember, anybody who gives you anything can take it away. Human rights and civil rights are totally two different things, two different levels. So this charter right here, or this document dealing with the United Nations, because Black, Negro, Colored, African American, etc. has been detached from the human family. So it's not strange that they call you an animal. It's not strange or a coincidence they call you a beast, or they look at you like you subhuman. Yeah, it's not strange. It's not strange. Anybody out there heard that saying, that a black or Negro or a nigger or a TC don't have rights that a so-called white man is bound to respect. Yeah, black people don't have any human rights. They have granted privileges. So there have been things put in place to govern property because black people, Negro, colored, African American are considered as being property. And I know this sounds cliche. And I know you done heard many more on Facebook and the social medias said this, but we have to keep teaching until somebody gets it. Because you see the evidence is right before your very eyes, but you are not willing to accept it. You don't want to accept it because you want to be equal with with the very one who abused you. Now we're going into this post-traumatic slave syndrome because people who suffered from trauma, one of the direct things of being affected by trauma is you wind up what they may call falling in love with the very perpetrator, the one who abused you. That's part of the trauma. It's a takeover and controlling the mind. And then once he give you a few kibbles and bits, feeds you here and give you a job there, and after he have made you suffer, and as a result of long suffering, and then he would come with something, a meal or something like that, and you eat it and gobble it up. You think it's the best meal you ever had. That's because you never really had a true meal, especially one that's made of your own. The only thing that you've been accustomed to is eating slave food. And that's what we've been raised on, physically, mentally, and spiritually. And all this was designed to control the mind. So, United Nations, declarations on rights of indigenous people. And it starts off by saying, in the history of post-colonial United States, there have ever been a vivid media shuffling of American nationals. I know how people like American nationals. What's that? I mean, subhanAllah, African nationals. What's that? We quick to say that other people can be considered as being nationals, but when it comes to us, it's hard for us to comprehend us being a national. African nationals doing their very best to imitate and to please their European counterparts. From clothing to voting, from language to religion, and from courts to slums, they have attempted to win while playing the white man game. And to do this, they, not one African, especially under the slave labels of Negro, Black, and colored people, has ever gained freedom or won independence. And you might say, yeah, we was given independence. Most people, they think July the 4th was their day of independence, but remember that July the 4th was the independence for the European, not you. You was a slave. So, excuse me, when it comes to freedom, you don't know what freedom actually is, because you've been given a few things, and we living in what we call, quote unquote, so-called modern time. You don't know what freedom actually is. You don't know what nationalism is about. You don't know about having your own, teaching your own. You always been You've been conditioned and trained to go through somebody else to get the right to do something for your own kind, your own family. You gotta go through this statute, this ordinance. You gotta go through this so-called white man and ask him permission to get to see if this right to teach your own children. You can't even start a school and teach your own children without his charge. Try to teach your own and see won't you get somebody called a so-called law on you. You might be able to do it secretly behind closed doors, but go out on the public and try to inform the public that you're starting to teach your own and see won't that become a problem. Because you interfering with his property. You interfering with his business. You see? So, these slave labels of Negro, Black, and Colored has ever gained freedom or won independence. Noble Drew Ali returned to the Moors, that's what we are. Do your research. Their game with which all the civilized nations, look at the family up there at the United Nations and the circle and dealing with the family of nations, they are considered the family of nations. There's no flag, and there's a flag representing every nation of people. But there's no flag representing African American, Negro, Black, or colored. There's no flag. There's no, because they've been detached from the human family. So, Moors, their game with which all the civilized nations of the earth can be victorious. Their game is free national standards and principles. We don't know anything about that. Ask our people what is free national standards and principles. They don't know anything about that because they've been taught that money makes the man. Money and property and being prestigious in his world makes the man. Our people consider their success through the eyes of Europeans. We don't see it. We can't see ourselves already being successful because we understand and know who made us. We have the right to our own authority. That sounds strange. I know somebody's probably mad at me right now because I said that. What is this Negro talking about? Because our mind been so conditioned to comprehending nothing that belongs to us. Our mind been conditioned to reject everything that belongs to us and been conditioned to accept everything he tells us, what he wants us to know, what he wants us to accept, etc. We have to check with him first. I'm not, you ask anybody, you get all, if you get honest with yourself, you will realize that, yes, this is so true. It's sad, but it's so true. So we don't know anything about standards and free national standards and principles because we based our success in who we are on how much money we got, how prestigious we are. That means if we work for the state, we work for the so-called federal government, then that puts us in a prestigious position, and that means that I must be somebody. Because my job says that I have a 4K plus. And I work for the government. See? Psychologically, that is programmed in our mind, which is another state or a so-called advancement on the plantation. Remember with slaves and how they advanced on the plantation, how they achieved their status physically, and it affected them psychologically throughout the different jobs that were given to them on the plantation. Field nigga, house nigga. I'm just giving you an example. So all in between, field nigga, house nigga, just put government, fast food employed, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And That's how black, Negro, colored people judge themselves when they come down to each other based on their prestigious status in that society, or based on their job, what the job type of job they have, or how much money they have, what type of house they live in. And this is what gives them the stimulation or make them think that they're better than their brother. See the division, see the competition, etc., etc., etc. But true men and women are, stand or nationals. What makes a man or a woman is three national standards and principles. These people have rule over themselves. These people have authority over themselves. These people teach their own have authority and are one with the idea that they understand that the great God of the universe made them somewhat, I don't want to say equal, but gave them inalienable and unalienable rights. He have endowed them with unalienable rights. You see? Look all of these words up. You have the authority to take charge or rule over your own life. But as a direct result of mental slavery, post-traumatic slave syndrome, and we're going to get into that. I just can't dive into it. I got to prepare the ground in order for corn to be planted. So, and then as a result, nurture and et cetera, et cetera. You just don't plant seeds and boom, and there go the flower. No, you got to till the ground. So, what else can burn up hatred like love? And this is why Prophet Noble Ali said that we have to learn how to love instead of hate. Or falsehood like truth, or war like peace, or slavery like freedom, or confusion like justice. The Moorish need to know their time is at hand, with a new era of time having been already declared by their prophet Noble Ali. He opened the door and all nations are at the ready for the Moorish Americans in their own natural person. And you know what? It's crazy because the world is waiting for us. With all everything that's going on in the world, answers, lies within us because we have been at the bottom. And being at the bottom have prepared us, so to speak, to appreciate our upbringing. It's amazing how, trials and tribulations are there to make you strong. And when you have been through everything and been through almost everything that we have been through as a direct result in overcoming, we still here. There's something that took place in you or formed in you that you may not be aware of. Look at your own personal life. Some of the things that some of us have gone through and have conquered has took us from one level in our life to the next level. I know I did. And this is the reason why I'm talking on this level. The person who I was over 20 some years ago wouldn't be talking like this. So look at your own personal life with some of the some of the trials and tribulations that you've gone through personally and took you from one phase or one state in your life to the next state. And just put it on a national scale, on a national level. That's individual karma and there's group karma. I'm happy to be talking to us on a national scale, but I'm using personal experiences to help us understand national experiences. So we can see the picture. What else can burn up? Again, hatred like love, or falsehood like truth, or war like peace, or slavery like freedom, or confusion like justice. The Moors need to know Their time is at hand, with a new era time having been already declared by the prophet Noble Jewel. He opened the door, and all nations are at the ready for the Moorish Americans in their natural person to take their place in the affairs of men and lead them aright. At one time, we still are, but at one time we was active in being the mothers and the fathers of the human family. We set the tone. We created and started a lot of things that the human family may be practicing now. But you thought somebody else discovered these things. There was a lot of other parts of the world that we ruled. And we didn't rule with an iron fist. We ruled according to principles. The highest principles known to man: love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. We civilized a lot of the European countries. I'm just, summarizing and giving it to you in all in one short breath. But you have to do the research yourself, because this is a part of you unfolding and becoming aware of who and whom you really are. Not who or what they told you was and who you were. No, you were not a slave. You happened to be taken into captivity. Once you're able to get past that mentally, because speech, language is so important. You are what you accept. But psychologically, after you go through the misnomers and the ordeals and the light come on, you realize that these are nothing but illusions. But you make them real because it's in the mind it's in the nature of the mind to make real whatever you believe. That's why you are a creator. You create your own heaven, you create your own hell. Heaven and hell is not a place of meets and bounds. These are states of consciousness. The whole universe is mental. And when we learn that the whole world is mental, we will be better fit to operate and demonstrate and become our own controller, or have rule of our own selves once again. But we will rule according to principles in harmony with one another. We'll be able to see the God in one another and love one another. We'll understand that we create our own conditions. So we'll know that a wise man will know that it would be foolish to practice hatred, because he will reap what he sows. But when you don't understand divine law or divinity, then you think that this won't happen to you. You can do unto others and this won't happen to you. Or it won't happen, the same thing that you do unto others won't happen to you. That's not true. So now, I want to read. Let me go here. Sharing my page, new page. I'm going to the book of Post-Traumatic Slave Syndrome by the doctor. And I'm going to start right here at the bottom where it says, so what is trauma? Trauma is an injury caused by an outside, usually violent force event or experience. We can experience this injury physically, emotionally, psychologically, and or spiritually. Traumas can upset our equilibrium. Key fact: Traumas can upset our equilibrium, and this is why Willie Lynch and his boys focus on, causing this disruption, because he says a direct result, if we would implement these foolproof methods, well, they will spin on its own axis for hundreds of years, thousands of years, and that will be done. At some point, you will only have to be around because of their own way of thinking and conditioning. As a result, they will continue to spin, keep this trauma spinning on its own axis. That's the upsetment. That's the result of the upset of the equilibrium. That's why they had to disrupt the stable, the God, the understanding of God, you and God being one. That's why you had to disrupt that unity. That unity. It had to replace the connection, it had to replace that connection with the true God with a false concept or ideal of a God outside of themselves. This was part of the process of upsetting the equilibrium and sense of well-being. Remember what I said, trauma happens as a direct result of what? So trauma is an injury caused by an outside, usually violent, force event. Reflect back on some of the things that took place in order to break us from one state to the next, and how they had to divide the family because we were so at one, we were so one with each other and unified with each other, psychologically and spiritually. There's another powerful book that you might want to get right here. It's called Breaking the Curse of Willie Lynch. Breaking the Curse of Willie Lynch. The science of slave psychology, because the breaking or the chemistry as a direct result of the breaking or the making a slave affect us psychologically and mentally, and it was embedded, it became embedded in our DNA. So it's not strange that our women and men don't get along. It's not strange that our house is divided. And it's so easy for you to see that going downtown, taking your man or the one that you chose to have a child with downtown, to you, there's nothing wrong with that. Because trauma, it's easy for you to accept and buy into his system because you've been traumatized. Equilibrium, your ability to use reason has been upset, thrown off. Look at other nationals. They don't conduct or govern their families like people here in America do, in the United States. If a trauma is severe enough, it can distort our attitudes and beliefs. Our attitudes about ourselves and our beliefs and our concepts about ourselves, our culture, our history, our story, our connection with our ancient ones. We are what they were without a doubt or contradiction. This is what, and we were given something else, a false or fake culture. In all of these institutions, why? Ask yourself the question, why is it so many of us, our people in these institutions? Psychological, mental hospitals, prison, or even dead. Why is it always us? Why is it so easy for us to say that we are cursed? I posted something earlier today and dealing with a European. I said the prophet said he's gonna make the European tell the truth. And she said that Christianity was established in our people, embedded in our people's mind for the sake of teaching them that it was being their souls being saved as a direct self from themselves. Now, what type of concept is that? You've been taught, conditioned to believe that you wicked. Look at the definitions of black. They do it psychologically. They embedded in your head, and you just easily accept it. Look up any definition in cordial, which is an adjective, and the definition of it, and see how negative it is. And you never question it. But as soon as somebody asks you your nationality, you say, I'm black. Every time you say, you know how powerful your word is? When you claim, I am black, what you just did psychologically and spiritually, once again, equilibrium being thrown off, your effectiveness to be able to think clear has been disrupted. You're not able to think as a God because they can't rule you as a God. They had to break you. They had to break you. They could not rule us as us in our natural state, as being the God man and God woman that we were made to be. If a trauma is severe enough, it can distort our attitudes and beliefs. Such distortions, family, often result in what? Dysfunctional behaviors. It's not strange that 85% of our children are given a diagnosis, or our families are considered as we come from dysfunctional families, or 85 large percentage of our people end up on drugs and alcohol as a result of the equilibrium being thrown off, chemically imbalanced. Did I ever click something, or is anything come on? All of it, we are natural scientists. Such distortions often results in dysfunctional behaviors, which can in turn produce unwanted consequences. But we seem to can't help ourselves. We find ourselves in situations that are unwanted, but we seem to can't help ourselves because psychologically we've been programmed. Just like 1 + 1 is 2. We can't seem to get away from that equation that they put in place to, if we think like this, we act like that, this is the result of what happens. Although we may say something out of our minds, there's a disconnection because the tongue is a navigator of the mind. So we taught ourselves how to repeat what we hear, but we haven't developed our cognitive ability or healed ourselves on a cognitive level where we can set that equilibrium back in motion, and then what we speak will be a direct result of the equilibrium, because the words that we will say will make sense. We will speak, say, and do the very thing that's supposed to be done, opposed to think one way, say one thing, and do something else. You see that a lot in our communities. We think one way, say one thing, and do something else. These are results of post-traumatic slave syndrome. If one traumatic experience can result in distorted attitudes, dysfunctional behaviors, and unwanted consequences, this pattern is magnified exponentially when a person repeatedly experiences severe trauma. Good God Almighty. Good God Almighty. If one trauma experience can result and distorted attitudes, okay? Think about that. Dysfunctional behaviors and unwanted consequences. Then this pattern is magnified spontaneously. Let me look that word up because I like to dictionary right there so we can know what we get into. It says more rapid by means of or as expressed by a mathematical exponent. When a person repeatedly experiences severe trauma, and it is much worse when the traumas are caused by human beings. The slave experience was one of continual, listen up, family, violent attacks on the slave's body, mind, and spirit. Slave men, women, and children were traumatized throughout their lives, and the violent attacks during slavery persisted long after the emancipation, or what we call, Emancipation Proclamation. So that's no written form or record can actually free you. It doesn't have the power. The only one that can free you is you. So after physical slavery was abolished, now you left with the psyche, the slave mentality. So who helped you with that? And this went on for generations and generations and generations to this day. And guess what? But the great God of the universe sent us a healing. The universe always provides itself with a solution or an answer to anything that's wrong. To do what? Set the equilibrium back into the universe so it can operate according to love divine or divine law. We have to have free will to choose, but if we don't accept it and we choose to stay in this state that we are in or we're in, then you reject the help. And remember, part of the post-traumatic slave or breaking or making the slave was to get you to psychologically and mentally reject that which actually belongs, or hate that which belongs to you, or hate or reject that looks like you. Some people hating me right now just because of the post-traumatic slave syndrome. What is that nigga talking about? He don't need talk. But if I was just the opposite shade, if I was pale skinned, everybody would probably be like this. But it's a whole different story when it comes to us, because we began to think who that nigga think he is. And subconsciously, in that trauma will affect his mind or his thinking that he's still a slave. So if he's still a slave or functioning under that state of consciousness, then those who we look at or see are still a slave. Or you can't see the God in him. But it's hard for you to love him. This is part of the trauma experience. Remember what I just read about the violent attacks, and as a direct result of being traumatized, how your body, your mind, and your spirit has been affected. But it takes truth to set you free. What is truth? Truth is art, and art is God. We say that God is spirit and spirit is love. Then you have to accept the truth about you, because it's still in there. The truth about you and who made you is still in there psychologically. Because the great God of the universe has also put in the memory of everything that he made freedom. But we got to tap into it, become aware, awaken, come alive again. That's the resurrection. That's when the resurrection becomes a fact, when you line the will, your will up with the deific will, which is God's will. That's in you. The resurrection, your mind become aware, or the resurrection becomes a fact. They knew this and understood this. This is why they watched us closely. And they tried to shut down every messenger that the great God of the universe sent to us that looked like us. If he spoke about having our own or being free, they came against us, and guess who backed them up? You. Because you didn't want to break away from the 3 hots and the cots. You was conditioned to accept the 3 hots and the cots. Instead of making and creating your own. Remember, the resurrection is only a fact when the will is lined up with the deific will, the God in you. Not something outside of you, not a middleman, not a dead man on a cross. I'm not speaking radical against the church. But if your God is dead or had died, we know that Yehoshua, Jesus, was a son of God. You understand? But just like we're all children of the Most High. But if your God has a mother and a birth date, then you in trouble. And I'm not saying this to be radical. I'm only trying to make you think. We supposed to follow examples of these brothers who were sent to us. Jesus, Muhammad, Buddha, Confucius, Jonah, Prophet Noble Drew Ali, Marcus Garvey, Elijah Muhammad, Minister Farrakhan. There are many people that I can name or call that's living the life accordingly. And I'm not saying everything they do and say is right, but what I'm saying is majority of the things that they're doing, we need to look at it and take it for an example and look at it and find the good in it. Especially when it comes to us being ourselves. Because the Prophet Noble Drew Ali said we wasn't Negro, black, and colored. And that's the only reason I'm saying that. They are misnomers. The great God of the universe never made a black man. All right. Post-traumatic slave syndrome examines these adaptations with an eye towards identifying today those that limit us and those that make us stronger. Let me go back because I think I missed something. Slave men and women and children were traumatized throughout their lives, and the violent attacks during slavery persisted long after the emancipation. In the face of these acquired injuries, those traumatized adapted their attitudes and behaviors to simply what? To survive. Yep, just like we do today. We adapt the attitudes and things that you simply to survive. Any things that can never change. We got to do this so we can eat. Food, sheltering, clothing is the first things that come to our mind when we start talking on this level. Which in ancient time, our lessons was they were the last on the 12-step ladder. The 12 crown jewels of life. They was actually the last on that 12 step. It was other things like wisdom, knowledge, understanding. Was the first on that 12-step ladder. So we have to get back to this. And I know it's going to be challenging because you love to talk about you addicted now to vanity. You listen to me saying, uh, you interpret what I just now said as we gotta put food, shelter, and clothing last, and that's all it is. That's all you really heard. You didn't hear anything about knowledge, wisdom, and understanding, etc. You heard about the food, the shelter, the clothing. So that stuck out to you. So that right there turns you off because you love eating your hog maws. No, I'm just saying that. We love eating, we love digging the grave with our teeth. We love eating his man-made foods, etc., etc., etc. I'm just, throwing things out there to get us to thinking. That's all. I love us. I love us. I had to, and still overcoming some things myself. So I'm not saying some things that I haven't challenged myself or still challenging myself to this very day. I'm saying that we all have to do this to free ourselves. But it's got to start somewhere. Somebody got to tell it. And you're not going to be highly favored. You're going to be popular when you talk like this. I'm not into popularity clubs anymore. I used to be back in the day, but it ain't about that today. I'd rather stand and be one with my Father God, Allah, and speak the truth and do what He tells me to do, opposed to trying to be accepted in circles of other people who don't care nothing about me, who would love to see me suffer, etc., etc. Now, we got children, we got the young and the yet not born that we got to save. Those who the Prophet Noble Jew Ali came for. He came for the young and the yet not born. So doing these things to simply survive. And these adaptations continue to manifest today. Post-traumatic stress syndrome examines these adaptations with an eye towards identifying today those that limit us and those that make us strong. Now, viewed through the historical lens of slavery and its aftermath, one may better understand the hesitancy, being hesitant, yes, of African American mothers to acknowledge the fine qualities of their children. When we roll the scene back a few hundred years, we see a slave master walking through. Pay close attention to this, man. We see a slave master walking through the fields coming upon a slave woman. The slave master approaches her and her children and remarks, "Well, now, that Mary of yours is really coming along." The slave mother, terrified that the slave master may see qualities in her daughter that could merit her being raped and sold, says, nah, sir, she ain't worth nothing. She can't work. She's stupid. She's shiftless. So she say and do these things as a direct result, or adapt, or make these adjustments to adapt to survive. Not only she does it there, but that's an example to show how this will happen in our lives in other areas. How we deny the truth or we belittle ourselves so we can survive. Because most of us don't want to take this stand because we feel as though we take this stand, oh, he definitely ain't gonna give us what we want. Because anybody who speak like this, they being bold. And they know that speaking like this, the so-called white man ain't going to agree with that. You speaking against the master. You understand? So you going to adjust, or our people have over years have made adjustments and adapt to certain circumstances only to survive. They have dumbed themselves down only, or even if they did exercise a little bit intelligence, it was only exercised to only satisfy him. It wasn't exercise to go and do something for yourself or on your own. It was exercise for the sake of making his business better, making his situation, his conditions better. The slave mother's degenerating statements about her daughters were spoken in an effort to dissuade the slave masters from molesting or selling her. And of course, no one would fault her. This behavior was nothing special. Slave mothers and fathers had been belittling their children in an effort to protect them for hundreds of years. Yet, what originally began as an appropriate adaptation to an oppressive and danger-filled environment has been subsequently transmitted down through generations. Just what I just now demonstrated. This has been transmitted down through generations. You may not can't see it, but it has been done. Listen to our people carefully. I'm only talking to those whose minds are awakened and those who are trying to awake themselves. Because those whose minds are closed and sleep ain't hearing this. So I'm speaking to those who want to wake up out of the sleepwalking, or those who are awake, so we can get with the solution. We can start working towards assisting and helping and uplift all the humanity, especially our people. Like the day I was watching the news and they asked the man in Chicago when them people got shot by the European. The European asked him simply a question, what do you think, what could be done to keep African Americans safe in Chicago? Don't you know he turned that question around and made it universal? He did not answer that question the way that the European asked him. So me being awake, I heard it. But him being asleep, the first thing he said, well, all people need to be safe. No, by him asking that question, wouldn't have denied him or saying anything wrong or denying anybody else that wasn't of our own kind. But in his slave mentality or mind, he heard, oh, he trying to trick me by trying to take up for my own. So his answer was, no, all people should be safe. Because that was the answer that he was trained to say in school. A hoop jumper. He's answered that question accordingly so he can keep his job and survive. Because if he would have answered any other kind of way, oh, he would have ruffled the feathers. But the European asked him the question just to see on national TV, just to see how he would answer. And his answer was likened to the slave master. But those who wait, and then who else did they have on the panel? They had all the crowd pleasers, the one who they call in to tone down the crowd to keep it from having some type of race riot. So who else was on the panel? What was his name? Pastor. See, that shows you how much attention I give to them. The one who's always like, not Reverend Jackson, but the other one. You know who I'm talking about. They always call in when something like this happened, so they put him on national TV to be a crowd pleaser, to tone the people down. And then he started identifying the president as being a good man. No, they didn't speak none to people who so-called supposed to be working in the behalf of us or for our best benefit. That don't deny anybody else. I mean, our people are afraid to speak to issues when it involves us specifically, because we hear something else totally different according to our cycle. That's what trauma do. Trauma causes you to hear something else totally different other than what he asked you. It's called fear. Fear. And our children and our men and women suffer from that this very day. You know, I could go on and on and on. I'm gonna pick back up on this tomorrow. You know, yeah, I'm gonna pick back up on this tomorrow because I got a lot more information. I want to go through the rest of this reading, and I want to deal with the science of the mind and dealing with causes and conditions and causes and effect. Because on a metaphysical level, I want to show you how the thought is the cause of it all. And if you don't change your thinking, the same thing will happen over and over and over and over again. So I want to assist our people and tap into their God traits or that state of mind or the God that's in them so they can exercise their authority. Make sense? So I want to thank everyone that's under the sound of my voice, or those who was listening on Facebook and on YouTube, etc., etc. And I will come back tomorrow and finish up on this subject matter. So thank you once again. Peace and love to everyone under the sound of my voice. Assalamu alaikum, Islam.